Welcome to my story channel. I'm Shamrock. In the 5th year of being together, my fiancée decided to run away at the wedding in order to satisfy her first love's wish to have a child for the family and to be with him. I disagreed and told her that if she left, I would forget everything between us. She didn't believe me and slapped me. I told her that I didn't want to play this game anymore, and if she wasn't willing to be with me, there was no point in continuing. In the end, I fainted from excessive grief and lost my memory, and she completely erased herself from my mind. When she found out, she turned completely white overnight, her eyes red and swollen with tears, choking back sobs as she said, "Ethan, please reconsider. I can't live without you." Now the story officially begins. I'm Ethan Smith, and I'm in the dressing room getting ready for the wedding. I've got my suit on and I'm sitting in the chair waiting for her to do my makeup. I've liked Olivia Johnson for 5 years now, and I've been courting her the whole time. Today I finally have the chance to marry her, and I feel both nervous and excited. Olivia, on the other hand, seems very calm. She stares at herself in the mirror as the makeup artist keeps working on her. I smile and walk over, gently taking Olivia's hand and saying, "Olivia, I'm really happy that we're finally getting married. I'll take good care of you from now on, and you can just be my little princess at home." Olivia finally smiles and agrees. For this wedding, I specially hired an expensive makeup artist who is very skilled and fast. It didn't take long for Olivia's makeup and hairstyle to be done. The makeup artist knew Olivia's style very well. She had a cold, aloof look in her eyes, which was accentuated by the makeup, making her look very noble and unapproachable. I looked down at Olivia's delicate face and felt a sweet feeling in my heart. I was really lucky to have such a perfect partner. Olivia noticed that I had been staring at her the whole time, and her face suddenly flushed. She bit her lip and avoided my gaze. Seeing her blushing face, I couldn't help but want to kiss her. But Olivia suddenly looked startled, covering her mouth with her hand, and even a trace of disgust appeared on her face. Her displeased expression was like a bucket of cold water poured on my heart, making my original excitement and nervousness disappear. I froze for a moment, and then slowly asked, "Olivia, what's wrong? Are you unhappy about marrying me?" Olivia seemed to realize that what she had just said was a bit inappropriate, and her tone of voice carried a hint of apology. She said, "No, Ethan, I just can't believe that I'm about to get married, and I'm a bit confused about the future." I asked, "Olivia, is it because you don't believe that I will love you well, or because you don't want to marry me?" "Don't worry, in my heart, you are the most important person, and I won't let anyone have the chance to hurt you. Trust me, and trust your own choice." Olivia looked at me for a few seconds, reached out and gently scratched my nose, and said with a smile, "Why are you being so serious? Of course I trust you, but I think marriage is an important matter, so I'm a little nervous. How could I not want to marry you? If I didn't, I would have snuck out this morning." She said this with a little smile in her voice. Hearing her say this, I also relaxed, reached out and touched her head and said, "Olivia, don't be nervous. I promise you will be the happiest woman in the world, and I will always be your lover." Olivia was amused by my words, and shyly leaned against my shoulder. She looked adorable. I turned my head and gave her a soft kiss on the forehead, then took her hand in mine, as if I were cherishing a precious treasure. We were enjoying the warmth when Olivia's phone suddenly rang. It was strange. Who would be calling her at this time? I picked up the phone, answered it and put it on speakerphone. A male voice with a nasal tone came from the other end of the line, asking, "Hello? I'm looking for Olivia. Are you her?" The voice sounded familiar, but I couldn't think of who it was for a moment. I was about to ask what he wanted, when Olivia suddenly snatched the phone from me, leaving 2 bloody fingernail marks on the back of my hand. I froze for a moment, and when I came to my senses, Olivia had already gone into the bathroom with the phone. Time passed by very slowly. I paced back and forth in the powder room, waiting for Olivia to come back. Who was influencing Olivia, especially on our wedding day? A strong sense of unease suddenly welled up in my heart. I felt as if I were going to lose Olivia. This sudden thought made me panic. We have been together for so many years. I believe Olivia will not leave me. Maybe she has been on the phone for a long time because of something urgent. I could only keep reassuring myself to calm down. After waiting for a few more minutes, I couldn't hold back anymore. So I ran to the door where she had gone into the bathroom and asked, "Olivia, is something wrong? You have been in the bathroom for so long. Are you feeling unwell? If there is something wrong, just tell me and I will help you solve it. Our wedding is about to start, so just come out when you're ready. I'll wait here for you." I was standing there at the door, talking to myself, when there was no response from the bathroom at all. I could only hear Olivia's low sobs. I almost pressed myself against the door, afraid of missing any sound. If something happened to Olivia, I would never forgive myself. I stayed in that position for a long time, and I felt my body stiffen. The wedding was about to start, so I quickly called the security guard. Just as we were about to force the door, Olivia finally came out. Unlike the delicate look she had when she first put on her makeup, her wedding dress was a bit messy, her hairstyle was a mess, and her eye makeup was a bit smudged from crying, so she didn't look very good. "Olivia, what happened? Is it serious? Do you need my help?" I was a bit panicked, so I grabbed Olivia's wrist. Olivia looked cold and indifferent, shook off my hand, and ignored me. She told me to go find the makeup artist to redo her makeup and style. After saying that, she returned listlessly to the dressing table. Hearing Olivia say that, I felt relieved, knowing that she would still be by my side. A few minutes later, Olivia's makeup was almost back to perfect condition. I said to her, "Let's go, Olivia. The wedding is about to start." I took Olivia's hand and was about to leave the dressing room, but she seemed to be nailed to the ground and couldn't be moved no matter how hard I pulled. I looked back and saw Olivia looking at me with a face full of difficulty. She said, "Ethan, I have something to tell you. I hope you won't be upset." I was a little stunned and nodded gently. It turned out that Ryan had just called her and said that he had cancer, and the doctor said he only had a year to live. Hearing this name, I was suddenly startled. Ryan Miller, he actually came back, and he called to tell me this news on the day of Olivia and my wedding. I smiled bitterly, tightened Olivia's hand and said, "Olivia, after the wedding is over, I will go with you to see him. Okay? Don't worry now." Olivia shook off my hand and her voice trembled a little. "No, it's too late. I can't just watch Ryan disappear like this." I was so anxious inside, but I patiently persuaded her. "Olivia, there is still hope for curing cancer. Don't worry too much. There are still a lot of people waiting outside. Let's just get this wedding over with quickly. Okay?" I reached out to take her hand, but she slapped me hard the next second. "Ethan, can't you understand what I'm saying? I said that Ryan's condition was critical, and you're still messing around? Is a wedding more important than a life? Your indifference to life is really frightening, and I don't think we're a good match." My face immediately turned red, but Olivia's words pierced my heart like a knife. "Are you saying that we're over?" I still had some hope in my heart, and I really hoped that this was all a dream. "Yes, I will be with Ryan for the next year, so you don't have to wait for me." Olivia didn't hesitate to pull off the veil and turn around and leave. I gave a bitter smile, and realized that she was wearing makeup not for our wedding, but for another man. "Hello, the bride and groom are getting ready to enter, or it will be too late." Someone knocked on the door. "Okay, hold on a second, we'll be right there." I dried my tears and called Olivia, hoping she would come back. I tried several times, but the phone never answered. I didn't give up, and with a stifle of tears, I sent Olivia a voice message. "Olivia, please, the wedding will only take 2 hours. It won't delay you from seeing Ryan." Seeing the opposite side display red, I felt a burst of joy in my heart and quickly sent another voice message. But the next second, a red prompt appeared on the screen. Olivia had deleted me. I froze, and it felt like a stone had been pressed on my heart. For Ryan, she really did this. There was someone at the door urging me to hurry, and all the guests were waiting for Olivia and me, so I had to gather myself together and go out. When I arrived at the venue, my mother hurried over and asked me, "Ethan, where's Olivia? Why are you here alone?" I lowered my head, pursed my lips, and said that Olivia had gone out to take care of something and might not be back for a while. My mother sounded a little worried and said disapprovingly, "What's going on? On the day of the wedding, the bride isn't here. What on earth are you guys doing?" I was about to explain when the staff hurried over and pulled me along, telling me to hurry up and go on stage, as the guests were getting impatient. My mother followed me, and with the staff's help, I made my way to the stage. The MC announced that the bride was entering, but there was no movement from that side, and the guests' expressions changed from curiosity to impatience. The MC seemed to have not expected such a big problem either, and he smiled awkwardly, picked up the microphone and said, "Don't be shy, bride, come out quickly. The groom has been waiting a little too long." But the whole venue was silent, and no one responded to him. Olivia's father couldn't sit still anymore, walked to the side of the stage and shouted, "Son-in-law, why are you alone? Where is Olivia? Where did she go?" I froze in place, head down, unable to say a word. To be honest, has that girl Olivia already run away? I'm telling you, even if she ran away, we're not going to return the bride price. My son needs to marry a daughter-in-law and buy a wedding house. Olivia's mother agreed, saying, "Yes, it's got nothing to do with us, and we didn't force her either." Olivia's parents had always favored their son over their daughter, using the 800,000 yuan bride price we paid to support her younger brother, and only giving her 2 quilts. When Olivia first started living with my son, she was covered in bruises from her father's beatings, and it took a while for me to nurse her back to health. Hearing this, my parents couldn't hold back any longer. "What do you mean? It's our family, my son, who's suffering now. Instead of thinking about how to get Olivia back, you're saying these things, which is outrageous." Olivia's parents were stunned. Their faces turned pale, and they kept saying they wanted to teach Olivia a lesson. The people around me were all in an uproar, staring at me with amusement and pointing their fingers, and I could feel them laughing at me in their hearts. Everyone thought it was ridiculous that the bride had run away on her wedding day. I stood there like a wooden man, my mind filled with memories of being with Olivia. Olivia and Ryan had been best friends since childhood, always sticking together and doing everything together. They both came from a mountainous area, and the people in their village were very biased, preferring boys to girls. Olivia didn't want to be sold by her parents to a bachelor from a neighboring village, so she decided to run away. One night, while her parents were asleep, she and Ryan sneaked away together, but they were caught not far from home. Olivia was beaten up badly, and Ryan was locked up at home. 6 months later, Olivia finally had the chance to escape when she slipped some sleeping pills into her family's rice. She met me at the entrance to the mountain road, having just returned from teaching. I felt so bad after hearing her story that I took her back to the city to look after her. Over time, I found myself growing fond of Olivia. She stayed at my place every day, without having to go to work or cook, just playing with the family cats and dogs. I spent almost all my salary on her, supporting her various hobbies, and even got her a walk-in closet. With my care and attention, Olivia's self-doubt from the beginning became more and more confident. 2 years later, Olivia's parents suddenly came to me and said that if I wanted to marry Olivia, I would have to prepare a bride price of 800,000 yuan. At this time, I learned that Olivia's family had a younger brother. After my parents learned about this, they firmly opposed me being with Olivia. But at that time, Olivia was irreplaceable in my heart. I always felt that if you love someone, you have to accept her for who she is. So I started working even harder, saved up the money for the bride price, and convinced my parents to accept Olivia. I did so much for her, but in Olivia's eyes, I still seemed like someone who could be given up at any time. I couldn't understand what all those years of feelings meant to her. Thinking about this, I held back the urge to cry, and took the microphone from the MC. "Thank you all for coming to my wedding. There has been an accident today, so please leave the venue first. I will refund the gifts as soon as possible. I bowed deeply to the guest area and then turned and left the venue. When I got home, it was already afternoon. I looked around the house, which was full of balloons, and froze. A few hours ago, Olivia had said excitedly that she wanted to marry me, but now I was alone in the spacious wedding room. I sat down on the sofa, feeling powerless. The festive atmosphere in front of me now seemed really ironic. From day to night, Olivia never called me, and my heart is getting colder and colder. It's obviously summer, but I feel like I'm in the middle of a cold winter, shivering. Although Olivia and I have been together for a long time, I still have some hope in my heart. Time flies, and I know Olivia won't come back tonight. Tonight, Olivia and I were supposed to have a happy and wonderful night, but Olivia ruined that happiness herself. Suddenly, my phone rang, breaking the silence in the room. I looked at the screen and saw that it was Olivia calling, so I was overjoyed and quickly picked up the phone. But it turned out to be Ryan's voice on the other end. His voice sounded hoarse, and he was panting heavily, as if something was wrong with him. He said, "Thank you, Ethan, for letting your wife spend her wedding night with me. Guess what we're doing?" Olivia's panting voice came through, and I suddenly became furious. I was so angry that I wanted to rush over and beat them up. I knew in my heart that Olivia still hadn't forgotten about me. Before, when I told her that I couldn't hold on any longer and that I hoped she could give me a child, she immediately put you aside and came to me. "Ethan, do you think you can still win?" Olivia used to be afraid of pain, and before the wedding she told me that she didn't want to have children. But now, for the sake of another man, she didn't hesitate to leave me alone at the wedding. I finally understand these things now. I was really mad and my fingers were shaking. The scene of them entwined kept playing in my head, and Ryan's words cut like knives, stabbing my heart over and over again. My bride, on the night we got married, actually abandoned me to be with another man and bear his children. What a bitter irony. "Ryan, I love you." Olivia's trembling voice rang out again, and my heart suddenly turned cold. After all the years we had been in love, she had never once said, "I love you" to me. I was silent for a long time before I told Ryan with a bitter smile that it was over with Olivia. The wound she had left in my heart could never be healed. The moment I hung up the phone, I felt my world spinning, and my head started to ache. Before long, I collapsed to the ground. When I woke up, I saw my parents looking at me with concern. Olivia's parents were in the corner, a little uneasily observing my reaction. As soon as my mother saw that I had woken up, she became emotional and tears welled up in her eyes. She threw herself into my arms and said, "Ethan, why are you so stupid? Even if you're not married, you shouldn't be so desperate. You've scared your mother to death." Even my usually serious father was in tears at the hospital bedside. I was a little confused, wondering why I was in the hospital and what had happened. When my mother heard me say this, her anger, which had subsided, flared up again. She said it was all Olivia's fault. "Stupid son. I told you long ago that you and Olivia weren't right for each other. But you insisted on being with her. Now you know how bad it is." I was so scared that I sat up suddenly. I had never even been in a relationship. So how could I suddenly be getting married? Marriage? Who is Olivia? "Mom, what are you talking about?" When I said this, my parents were both stunned, their faces full of disbelief. In their view, I really like Olivia, and I feel so bad when even the smallest cut on her finger makes me feel so sad. Olivia's parents were worried, and quickly took my hand, saying, "Ethan, listen to your father. This is all Olivia's fault, so don't be angry. When she comes back, I'll make sure she knows you're upset." Olivia's father was so excited that he spit in my face. I broke free of his grip, wiped the drool off my face, and wondered a little, why should I be angry? I don't even know Olivia, so what are you talking about? At that moment, the four of them froze. After a few minutes, my parents dragged me off to have my brain scanned. While waiting in line, my mother leaned over and whispered, crying, that I must have been traumatized in some way, and she was worried that I might have a brain problem. I didn't understand what they were talking about, and I didn't know how to comfort them, so I just kept quiet. Half an hour later, I got the brain report, which showed that I was in good health and could be discharged at any time. My mother was still worried, so she talked to the doctor about my situation again. The doctor finally explained that it might be because that memory was too painful for me, and my brain had chosen to forget it in order to protect me. Hearing this explanation, my mother was finally relieved, but her resentment towards Olivia deepened a little more. Now, whenever she mentioned Olivia's name, her eyes seemed to be about to burst into flames. I didn't like the depressing atmosphere of the hospital, and I wasn't really sick. It was really inappropriate for a grown man to be hospitalized after a fall. The next morning, after my parents had accompanied me for a full body checkup, they discharged me from the hospital. Sitting in the back seat of the car, I had nothing to do, so I picked up my phone and watched videos to pass the time. I opened WeChat and saw a message from my good friend Leon Zhang. After listening to the voice message he sent, I felt that he was a little confused and a little angry. He asked me, "What's going on with you and Olivia? She ran away from the wedding. We thought she had an emergency, but it turns out she went to Sonia with someone else. This is outrageous." After listening to the voice message, I looked at the photos he sent again. My fiancée had posted a set of 9 grid photos, most of which were of her in a bikini on the beach with a man. This man was Ryan. I was very confused. I thought to myself, how could the person I'm going to marry take such intimate photos with another man? I looked through my contacts and found the person with the note, Olivia's wife. But I realized that she had blocked me yesterday afternoon. Since that was the case, I didn't want to get into any more trouble, so I directly clicked delete friend. After doing this, the big stone in my heart seemed to have disappeared all of a sudden, and I felt extremely relaxed. My father took my mother and I into the community, and we were almost home. As soon as I opened the door, Yuanbao and Mitzi rushed over and jumped into my arms. Yuanbao is a golden retriever I rescued from a dog meat restaurant, and Mitzi is a stuffed cat I bought from a closed cat cafe. They like to stick to me, and often fight over who gets more attention. I sat back on the sofa and noticed that the living room was just as it had been the day before. Red balloons hung from the ceiling and the word she, happiness, was pasted on the windows. I looked at the streamers scattered on the floor and thought to myself, today I should have been someone else's husband, right? Son, take a break for now. I'll ask your father to clean up the house. I'll go prepare the food, and later we can all get together for a nice meal. My mother casually tore the red, lucky, character off the window, a little dissatisfied in her tone. I gave a soft response, took the stuffed cat in my arms, and gently scratched her chin. The kitten closed her eyes in enjoyment, purring, which made my already bothered mood much better. I was amusing the cat when suddenly the person who had left a message saying, Olivia's wife, called again. Although I knew in my heart that I shouldn't answer, my curiosity was too strong and I picked up the phone. Olivia's voice was very angry, so sharp that it felt like it was going to pierce my ears. She said, Ethan, I only missed the wedding, but you had to pretend you didn't remember in front of my parents? Do you know what they called me? How could I possibly like someone as selfish and cold as you? Can't you consider other people's feelings a little? I was a little dazed and stuttered, unable to find the words. Olivia was even more annoyed when she didn't hear back from me. Ethan, why aren't you saying anything? Is there a problem? Even the most patient person would be upset if they were yelled at for no reason, let alone someone I barely knew. Who are you to say these strange things to me? There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, and Olivia gritted her teeth and said, Okay, Ethan, you're really something. Just you wait. One day you'll come begging, and I won't give you face. I hung up the phone helplessly and blocked her number. Being scolded for no reason felt like a toad suddenly crawling on my foot. It wasn't scary, but it really made me uncomfortable. It's better to block such people as soon as possible to avoid trouble in the future. Ethan, who called you? My mother poked her head out of the kitchen while she was cooking. still holding the spatula in her hand, and asked me, "It's nothing, Mom, just a crank call." I answered with a smile, "I hope there won't be any more of these crank calls." More than an hour later, my mother had prepared a big meal, and my father had cleaned up most of the house. Almost everything on the table was my favorite food. I was really happy sitting at the table. After a few bites of rice, all the annoyance from Olivia's interruption disappeared. "Ethan, what are you going to do about Olivia?" I felt better, and my mother asked me carefully what was wrong. I didn't really understand why they were so concerned about someone I didn't know. I kept saying I didn't know her. What could I possibly plan with a stranger? "Ethan, your parents understand that you have some issues with Olivia, but it's not healthy to keep getting angry. Our family has already given 800,000 yuan in gifts, which is not a small sum. We need to find a solution, and dragging this on is not a good idea." Even my father, who doesn't usually say much, started to persuade me. It seemed that neither my father nor my mother believed me. They thought I was just trying to compete with Olivia. I sighed, feeling particularly powerless. I really couldn't understand what I had done to make everyone lose faith in me. "Dad, Mom, I really wasn't joking. I really don't remember Olivia." But my parents still wouldn't give up, and kept asking me, "Do you remember how you met? Did anything happen on your wedding day?" I could only shake my head and say I didn't remember. Then my mum took out the photo of Olivia and me from her phone and asked me, "Is there really nothing you can remember about this person next to you?" I said, "No, absolutely nothing." Hearing me say that, my parents finally began to believe that I really had amnesia. My mum put the phone away, picked up some food on my bowl and comforted me, saying, "It's okay, son. Forget it. You'll definitely find someone better in the future." We had a pretty happy meal. After we had eaten, my father sat on the sofa in the living room watching TV, while my mother and I washed the dishes in the kitchen. Before long, the doorbell rang and Olivia's parents burst in. My father was already angry, and as soon as he saw them, he rushed up to them and said, "How dare you come here? Our Ethan has been so badly treated by Olivia. Are you here to be scolded? Return our family's bride price now. The Smith family is not someone to be trifled with." If my son hadn't said a few kind words, do you think I would have agreed to let your daughter in? Hearing these words, Olivia's parents immediately panicked and quickly grabbed my father's hand. "In-laws, that's not true. Olivia is a heartless child, and she doesn't answer the phone when we call. Wait, we'll go get her right now, and you can do whatever you want with her. We won't say anything if you want to beat her." I really couldn't bear to watch any longer, so I wiped the water from my hands and walked out of the kitchen. "Uncle and Aunt, you don't need to be so nervous. Olivia is just a stranger to me, and I have nothing to do with her. I just want what is rightfully ours and nothing more." Olivia's parents looked very panicked, as if they couldn't imagine how difficult it would be for them to return the 800,000 yuan bride price. Without this money, there was no wedding car or house for their son. I didn't say anything, and turned around to go back to the kitchen. "You guys should leave quickly. Our family doesn't welcome you now." In the scuffle, the door slammed shut, and Olivia's parents' voices were shut out. My world was finally quiet. Olivia's parents were really action-oriented, and the next morning they came to my house early in the morning with a fiancé I didn't know and knocked on the door. Olivia had some injuries on her face, and Olivia's parents dragged her into the living room. When she saw me, she immediately lowered her head, her eyes a little flustered. To be honest, although I didn't have a good impression of Olivia, I have to say that she is really pretty. Even though she has a little injury on her face now, I can still see that she is quite pretty, especially her cold and noble temperament. Olivia's parents saw that I reacted a little, and immediately pushed Olivia in front of me. I quickly avoided it, and Olivia's parents came over again, took my hand and said with a smile, "Son-in-law, look, I have found this girl back and even beat her up. Does that make you feel better? If you feel better, you can continue to beat her, and you can do whatever you want. As long as you don't mention the return of the bride price, we won't care." Hearing these words, Olivia looked up at me with a hint of resentment in her eyes. I sighed, really not understanding why they were doing this. I told them that I didn't even want to be involved with their daughter, and that I didn't even know her. Even if I brought her here, what would happen? Olivia looked at me in surprise after hearing this, with a hint of ridicule on her face. She said, "Ethan, do you still want to pretend you don't remember?" I replied, "I just want to have a child with Ryan. Why are you being so petty? Are you happy that I've been beaten up like this?" After being hassled again and again, my patience was long gone. "Young lady, I've already said that I don't know you and I don't care if you come back or not. I just want to get back the 800,000 yuan that belongs to our family. Do you understand? If you continue like this, I'll have to protect my rights through legal channels. Dad, Mom, please ask them to leave. I don't want to say anything more to them." Olivia's parents were asked to leave the house again, and Olivia was obviously panicked, looking at me anxiously. "Ethan, are you serious? You really don't remember me?" I didn't have time to chat with her, and I simply pushed her out, telling her that I didn't know her. "If you guys bother me again, I'll call the police." Olivia wanted to say something else, but I had already pushed her out, which really wasted a lot of my energy dealing with them. A month later, my parents' case to recover the bride price finally went to court. Olivia's parents lost and had to return all 800,000 yuan to us. After making sure I was physically fine, I let my parents go back home. After all, I was already grown up and didn't want them to take care of me like a child. My savings were enough to support me for many years without worry. I handed in my resignation letter to the company leader and planned to take some time off at home. No matter what happened in the past, I just want to live a simple life now, spending every day with my cats and dogs. That's enough for me. I don't want anything else. I thought I would never hear from Olivia again. But then she showed up at my doorstep half a month later. We hadn't seen each other for so long that Olivia's face wounds had mostly healed, but she looked a lot thinner, wearing a baggy dress. As soon as I saw her, I wanted to slam the door, but Olivia put her foot out and blocked the door. In order not to hurt her, I had to give up the idea of closing the door. "Ethan, I knew you still had feelings for me, otherwise you wouldn't have let me in." Olivia looked at me with teary eyes, looking very aggrieved. I pretended to be calm on the surface, but in fact I had rolled my eyes several times. Was she a little too self-righteous? If she wasn't blocking the door, I wouldn't have let her in at all. If she really got hurt, then I would have lost a lot. Olivia looks a little embarrassed, but quickly puts on a pitiful face again. "You said before that you really like the dumplings I make, so I got up at 6 o'clock this morning to knead the dough and show you if they are to your liking." Olivia puts the thermos on the table and then gets a small bowl from the kitchen and gives me a big bowl of dumplings. Although I want to push the bowl back, Olivia just won't let go. She said she wouldn't leave until I tried it. So I took the bowl and reluctantly ate one dumpling, swallowing it with a grimace. "How was it?" Olivia looked at me with sparkling eyes, wanting to know if I was satisfied. I was silent for a while, and then decided to tell the truth. "You're really good. After all, it's not easy to find dumplings that taste worse than this." The dumpling skins weren't even cooked, and the meat filling inside felt like it had been salted for a long time. "Not bad, but don't make them again." Olivia's face turned red and then white when she heard what I said, and she was so embarrassed that she couldn't bring herself to give me the rest of the dumplings. "So do you remember anything now? Ethan, we've been together for so long. Have you really forgotten me?" I shook my head. "It's not that I've forgotten. It's just that I don't know you at all." Olivia was obviously hurt when she heard what I said, and tears were about to fall. "Ethan, I beg you, think again. I really can't live without you," she cried, but I didn't feel a thing. "It's not good for you to keep hanging around other people's houses. You should go home." Olivia seemed to be taken aback and took a few steps back. "Do you really think so? Ethan, I really love you. It was my fault that I ran away on our wedding day. I promise I won't do it again. Can you forgive me this time?" I shook my head and put the lunchbox back in her hands. "Don't say any more nonsense. Take care." Olivia's tears were about to fall. She slowly retreated from my house. Perhaps my words had hurt her, because she didn't come to see me again for a month. Later, my good friend Leon and I went to a high school reunion at the invitation of the monitor. Ethan, guess who's back today? I was a little confused, so I whispered to him, Who? You're still teasing me? Leon couldn't help but laugh, reached over and poked my shoulder, and said, Claire Davis. She grew up with us, and then she went abroad, didn't she? She contacted me yesterday and said she wanted to come to the reunion. I nodded. Claire, I remember. She lives next door to me, and when we were little, she played in the mud with Leon and me. Why are you reacting so calmly? You can't mean to tell me that little girl used to like you. Oh, when was that? I have absolutely no recollection of that. Leon patted his thigh, looking quite annoyed. Yes, I remember. There was a little girl in junior high who told me she had a crush on you, and asked me how to woo you. But before I could start, her parents took her abroad. I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't tell you about it. You were really attractive. Claire is back in the country now, and she's even prettier than Olivia. I glanced at him, and Leon immediately knew he'd said the wrong thing. He made a zipper sealing sound, and I laughed, not saying anything more. What are you guys talking about, laughing so happily? Take me with you. Claire smiled as she walked in and sat down in the empty seat next to me. To be honest, Claire looked nothing like the little girl who used to play in the mud with us. Although we hadn't seen each other for a long time, we didn't feel awkward at all, and soon we were having a great time chatting. Suddenly, a cold drink splashed onto my calf. I looked back and saw Olivia standing behind Claire, holding a cocktail with ice in her hand. Claire was startled by the splash and quickly stood up from her seat. I also stood up, took off my jacket and put it over Claire's head. Olivia, what are you doing? What kind of madness is this at a party? Leon was furious and stood up, pointing at Olivia and protesting loudly. Olivia ignored him and looked up at me and said, Ethan, if I hadn't installed location tracking on your phone, I wouldn't have known that you were chatting up other women behind my back. Olivia looked like a madwoman to me at this point, and I was surprised that she could be so crazy. I told her, if you keep pestering me, I'll call the police. I already said I didn't know you, so stop taking it out on other people. But Olivia obviously didn't want to give up, and started blaming Claire, questioning why she had no shame. Olivia said that she was already pregnant with Ethan's child, and Claire was still trying to seduce him. Does she even care about people with families? After Olivia finished, half the people in the room turned their heads to look at me, all with expressions of amusement on their faces. I really couldn't stand Olivia's nonsense anymore, so I grabbed Claire, who had been covered in spilled wine, and told her, Please repeat what I just said, so I can record it and report it to the police. You can't just say things about me without proof, and I'm not just going to let it go. Olivia didn't dare argue this time, and just stared at me blankly. In the past, I could tolerate her, but now she's like a stranger to me, a stranger who's always looking for trouble, and of course I'm not going to be nice to her. Olivia saw that I wasn't buying her act, so she tried to get me to sympathize with her by playing the martyr card. Ethan, Ryan has been cheating on me. In fact, he was married long ago in his hometown. He doesn't actually have cancer. It's just that his wife can't bear a son. So his parents asked Ryan to trick me into having a child. I'm a victim too. Ethan, if you can forgive me, I'm willing to let the child bear your surname. What do you think? I almost laughed out loud, but I was actually a little angry. Sorry. I'm not someone who will become a father casually. You have to take responsibility for your own actions. Olivia tried to speak a few times, but in the end she didn't say anything. In the midst of the chaos, Leon had already called the security guard, and Olivia was taken away by the security guard without resistance. Seeing Olivia being taken away, I felt relieved and hoped that she would not bother me again in the future. Suddenly, I realized that I was still holding Claire's hand, so I quickly let go. Are you okay? Are you cold? Claire shook her head, and her face was a little red. I had only ever seen her as a friend, but when I was holding her today, my heart was beating really fast. Claire seemed to sense something, Her face turned even redder, and she gently touched my chest. She asked me, "Are you okay? I heard Olivia has been giving you trouble." I smiled and shook my head, saying, "It's fine. She doesn't really affect me." Claire lowered her head, a little uncomfortable, speaking, "Actually, I can pretend to be your girlfriend so Olivia won't bother you again. You probably don't know, but I actually liked you in junior high school. I didn't mean to fall in love at an early age. I just had a crush on you back then. I'm a good girl," she explained a little nervously, which made me laugh, and all my worries disappeared. The past and people from the past no longer mattered to me. I didn't want to waste any more emotions on insignificant people. After spending a few months with Claire, we decided to get together. Since we had known each other since childhood and both of our parents were very supportive, we decided to get married 6 months later. During this time, we planned a honeymoon and experienced the beauty and culture of the whole country. Spending time with Claire, I felt like I was finally living life to the fullest for the first time. I no longer envied other people's love, because Claire was the one who truly loved me. 6 months later, Claire and I returned from Dali and began preparing for the wedding with our parents. The night before the wedding, Leon asked Claire and I out for a late-night snack. From him, I learned about what had happened to Olivia and Ryan over the past few months. It turned out that after Olivia's parents found out that she was pregnant with Ryan's child, they immediately took her home and used the child to force the Miller family to pay the bride price. Ryan's parents heard from somewhere that Olivia was pregnant with a girl and stopped caring about her. Olivia's younger brother was upset because they didn't have a wedding house or a wedding car. So he took his anger out on Olivia and beat her every day. Olivia was beaten so badly that she miscarried, and without timely treatment, she eventually died in the basement. Ryan was cheated when he went out to work, and he escaped after injuring his legs and arms. When I heard about them again, I just felt sorry for them and dismissed it as just general gossip. On the night the wedding ended, Claire lay on the red bedsheets, coquettishly saying, "Why didn't you fall in love with me first? You have to declare your love for me 100 times, or I won't pay any attention to you." I laughed, embraced her in my arms, kissed her neck lightly, and said, "Claire, I love you, and the rest of my life belongs only to you."